Hi, this is Shauna from the Foiled Fox, and I am showcasing Floral Delicacies, a wonderful stamp and die set by Papertrey Ink and Ink to Paper collection. And it has these wonderful flowers and leaves to go with it. So let's look at the stamp set. There's two panels to this. These flowers, actually you stamp one and then you stamp one on top of the other to give dimension. And then it has leaves and some sentiments, some wonderful sentiments actually, and then the matching die set. So to get started, I'm going to use a piece of Nina white cardstock, and I have the stamp. This stamp has the two flowers together, and I'm first stamping it with berry sorbet and lavender moon for the large flower. And you can see I kind of hold it back before I stamp it onto the paper, and that's because I'm spritzing it once about an arm's length, just to give it a little bit of dampness on the stamp so that the ink will move a little bit, it'll blend a little bit. So I stamped that one again, and I used raspberry fizz for the small one and pale peony for the large one. And then this big blossom, single blossom, I'm stamping with raspberry fizz. I just love that color. It's a beautiful one. And then it has this little stamp for a little flower, and I'm stamping one in pale peony and another in raspberry fizz. Now that I have those all stamped, I'm going to actually emboss them with different embossing powders to give them a little bit different look. So I'm going to cut them apart right now, and then we'll get started stamping them. So I'm going to start out with this combination again, and there is this matching stamp that goes on top of it to give those little dots, those wonderful dimensional dots, and I think the embossing powder really makes them stand out too. So I've stamped it, I've of course prepped it with anti-static powder, and I've inked up the stamp with Versamark ink and then stamped it. And now I'm using white embossing powder for the small berry sorbet flower, and then the lavender moon I'm using fuchsia fusion, which is all of these are all of these embossing powders are wow embossing powder. And so I'm heat setting this, and then we'll set this one aside and go on to the next grouping of the two flowers. And I'm stamping it, I'm inking it again with Versamark ink and stamping it. And this one I am going to be using for the large flower. I'm going to be using tickled pink and the small flower white. And then I will heat emboss that as well. And I'll go on to the large flower, stamp this one, and I'm going to be using the fuchsia fusion to really give a really beautiful bright blossom there. And with those done and all heat embossed, then we'll go on to stamping the centers. I'm going to do, there are two stamps for the centers, and we'll be using the small little center stamp for the small flowers and the large center stamp for the large flowers. So I'm stamping those all with Versamark ink, and I'm going to use the same embossing powder for all of these. I wanted it to be quite subtle, so I'm using white satin pearl, a Hero Arts embossing powder that I like quite a lot if you want just a hint of color, but still have the wonderful dimension of the embossing powder and the gloss of it. And now I'm taking the matching dies, and I'm going to cut out all of these pieces. And you see that I have the leaf die up in the upper left corner, where I'll show you what we'll do with that in just a moment as well. So we're just going to position all of these, and then I'll cut them all out, and then I'll take a piece of juicy pear, which is this green, and I'll cut out that single leaf and then also cut out that big cluster. And you can see I left them in there. I don't want to take them out yet because I want to blend on some ripe avocado It looks like here that I'm covering all of the paper with ripe avocado. I am just adding some shading. It is not all of the juicy pear color of the cardstock is gone. You'll see that when we get to using it in a little bit. But now I have a white card base, and then I have a piece of Neenah cardstock that goes about halfway, not quite halfway. And then I'm using a piece of soft stone Bitty Big pattern paper. You can see on one side it has small stripes, and the other side the large. For this project, I decided to use the large stripes. The Bitty Big paper comes in is color matched with their inks and comes in every color that they offer in the inks, and it has all these different patterns. It really works out nicely. But with that stuck on there, I did put double stick tape. But I'm leaving that strip. We'll talk about that fuchsia strip in a minute. But right now, I'm going to take that top little panel that I made out of Neenah cardstock, and I'm using Weather Vane and Soft Stone being the lighter color, which I'll use at the top, and then using Weather Vane at the bottom. And I'm using a stencil by My Favorite Things. I think it's called Confetti. All of the supplies, by the way, will be a link down below, and you can go and check out all of it. It'll be very complete there, and there'll be some close-ups and tons more inspiration. And now with the pale peony, I'm just blending on some about halfway up. I want it to peek when we do mount the flowers. I want it to peek out a little bit. So I'm just going about halfway up on this panel. With that done, I'm going to apply this to our card base. So you can see we're just building this card. We've got all our pieces done. So now we're assembling it. And I have a piece of bright fuchsia paper. It's about an inch strip that goes the 4 1/4 across. And I'm going to position that, and actually we will adhere that down, but in a few minutes. First, I want to kind of get an idea of how these flowers will arrange, because I want to know where I'm going to put the sentiment. There are 3 sentiments to this stamp set. I'm using the beautiful big script hello. It's a wonderful script, and I've inked that, or excuse me, I have prepped the card with anti-static powder, and I'm holding it down with a little piece of washi tape, and then I've inked this with Versamark ink, and I'm just stamping that down. You can see I used an acrylic block that has a grid on it that's long enough to reach across the whole width of the panel, and then so there's a grid on my glass mat, and I just line those up, and it makes a straight sentiment every time. And I embossed that hello with gunmetal, which is a Ranger color. It's a dark gray, quite beautiful actually. And then heat emboss that. And now with some foam tape on the back of these flowers, I'm going to get to arranging them. And I did put that, by the way, that strip, I did adhere that down. Just that little strip to give it a little bit of pop of color. I've taken those leaves and cut them in half, that little spray of them, and I'm arranging the one part of the spray down at the bottom and tucking it underneath, and then these flowers. And now I'm going to take the rest of these leaves and then just arrange them near the top. Now this one, there's a little bit hanging out that I think I'm just going to trim off. It's hanging out just a little bit too much, and it'll get bent when I go to put it in an envelope, so I'm going to just trim that back. So I adhered all those leaves with a little bit of liquid glue, and here we are with this wonderful spray of flowers, just kind of bright and cheery, and then the gray with the green. I really like this combination. I hope you liked it as well, and if you did, I hope you will consider giving us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. And you can always go over to foiledfox.com/blog to check everything out, but again, there's a link down below that it'll take you to all these places. And you can see I also listed just a few of the major pieces that products I should say, that I used in this project. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I really do hope you did enjoy it, and we will see you next time.